creating a life you love and in the magic flow, a journey of personal transformation. Here we have the December 4th new moon eclipse. Let's take a look at this. I've set this for Eastern time in the United States. So this is 2:43 a.m. on December 4th. So if you are in a part of the country where it's technically around midnight of December 3rd, just keep in mind that you can't really benefit from the energy of a new moon until after the new moon, because the fact it's going dark, it's like it's planting a seed in the dark soil, and once the light comes in, which would be the next morning, which would be December 4th, then you start to see the illumination and the growing and the birthing and the sprouting, okay? So even though technically it might be really late at night of December 3rd, wherever you are in the country or in the world, you can't really use the energy until the next morning, December 4th anyway. So just keep that in mind. So I think saying this new moon is on December 4th is actually more accurate. Now, the other thing we need to consider is that this is an eclipse, so it's a very special kind of new moon, which I will talk about. New moons are always the conjunction of the moon and the sun, which you can see here at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, 22 minutes. An eclipse is when the nodes are within a certain degree of the new moon, okay, or full moon. So this is within that degree range. So that makes it a new moon eclipse. We also need to consider which of the nodes it's conjunct. And in this case, it's the south node. We can also see that it's conjunct Mercury in Sagittarius at 15 degrees, 13 minutes. So with Mercury there in Sagittarius, it gives it that kind of added mercurial effect, and the north node is in Gemini. So with Mercury being the ruler of Gemini, it strengthens the north node in this case. And also because the eclipses are always on the nodes, whether new moon or full moon, both nodes are impacted. So this new moon eclipse in Sagittarius has a very strong Gemini aspect because Mercury is the ruler and because the north node is in Gemini. So that axis is very much activated, which is the third and ninth axis of the mind, communication, whether it's your own way of thinking about things and projecting that out into the world, or some kind of information you're taking in, or something new that you're learning, or some new kind of communication, or maybe you're writing or using some other form of communication, learning, thinking, speaking, expressing. And then with the Sagittarius, that's like the wider view of your belief systems, your overall philosophy of life, and how you interact with the world where that's concerned, either projecting that out into the world through communicating or teaching, or maybe you are the one who is learning. So you might have entered some kind of educational program. It doesn't have to be formal, it can be informal, but it's something, a new kind of program that you're learning, because Sagittarius also rules higher learning. So that means that basically anything that you go out into the world intentionally to learn, okay, or that you put out into the world. It can be either. The ninth house rules higher education, so you can be teaching or learning, and it rules publication, so you can be reading or writing, and it rules law and belief systems, religion, broadcasting. So it's our greater overall concept of reality that we share with the world and that we try to change, and it tries to change us. So knowing that, then you can imagine you might be stepping on a new journey of learning or broadcasting your ideas out into the world. So you can think about that if that's true for you. The other issue is wherever it's landing in your chart. And so basically you would have to know where your ascendant or sun is, because you can do it either way. So if your ascendant or sun are in Aries, then you always know that this is the 3rd and 9th house axis, which means the new moon eclipse would be happening in your 9th house. But if you don't have your sun or ascendant in Aries, then you just need to count down. So as an example, if your sun or ascendant is in Taurus, then you would just count it down, which would push this into your 8th house. If you have a Gemini sun or ascendant, it will push it into your 7th house. So you see, you just rotate like that, and that'll help you to know where this is happening in your chart. And then you can either do some research on what those houses represent, or if you want to get a reading, you can always look in the description box below. And I am going to be starting my specials, so that link will take you to my specials. If you want to ask specific questions about this, you can always come over and become a patron. We're doing a Zoom party on Friday, December 3rd, so that anyone who wants to ask specific questions will have an opportunity to engage with me and the community face-to-face on Zoom and ask any questions you want, okay? So back to this, we also want to look at other things that are happening at the same time. So I always look for the trines and sextiles first, but this one has a lot of them. It's making trines and sextiles to anything in fire and air. That means Saturn and Jupiter are making sextiles to these planets in Sagittarius. Now, the one with the closest aspect is Saturn. So that means that it's impacting the Saturnian energy. This new moon eclipse, sextile Saturn, is opening up an opportunity for anything related to Saturn. And Saturn is all about career because it rules your 10th house. So that's your career and vocation, calling, status in the world, what you contribute out into the world, and how the world sees you and appreciates you and recognizes you for that. So we just think of the 10th house as being career, fame, social status, because that's the way the world sees you. But also it is about calling and vocation, meaning that you are called to do something. It's not always going to be the same thing as your job, okay? Or how you earn your money, okay? So don't always assume that the two are connected. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes people are not doing what they're actually called to do, or at least the way that they're making their money is not always the way that what they're called to do. In other words, their vocation, their calling. So you can think about that too. If what you feel called to do is not the same thing as the way you earn your money or your job, then you might want to try to see if you can get closer to lining up your calling with your daily activities, like your job, how you earn your money. You can just think about that, because this new moon eclipse might actually create an opportunity for that, especially if you are getting training or education, whether formal or self-taught, that will give you an opportunity to improve your career. Okay, so that could be what this new moon eclipse is about for you. Because one of the other really striking features of a new moon eclipse is that it's 3 times more powerful than a regular new moon. So regular new moon, the energy of it would last about 2 weeks to a month maximum, and then you've sort of used up that jolt of energy that you got from the new moon. With an eclipse, eclipses activate karma. So for example, Saturn is a very karmic planet. When I say karma, a lot of times people think karma, they only equate that with bad karma. But karma is just simply our soul's contract when we come into incarnation. We have karma that we work through, which is there's really no such thing as good and bad. It's more like favorable and unfavorable, or easy and difficult. And so sometimes, you even if you're doing something that you're really excited about, like taking on new education, improving your skills, your skill set, you're educating yourself, you're getting certification, whatever it is, getting a degree, or just, self-taught. That can be difficult, that can be challenging. Sometimes it's not even pleasant, but it's still a good thing, you see, and it will open up opportunities for advancement in your career if that's the way this is playing out in your life. Again, it can depend on where this new moon eclipse is happening and where your Saturn is to know exactly where the opportunity is showing up, but this is the general flavor of it. So a lot of times, even if it's showing up in a different house, it'll still manifest something related to education or putting information out into the world that will help you advance in your career or your social status, okay? So this is a really nice sextile and a fabulous opportunity to educate yourself or write a book or do something like that. Put information out into the world, broadcast it, publish it, teach it, or educate yourself, and you will create an opportunity for advancement. Now, the other sextile is to Jupiter. This is a much wider orb. It's 10 degrees. Actually, it's a little more than 10 degrees between Mercury and Jupiter. But as I said, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, where the North Node is, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. So even though that's a fairly wide orb, it's still considered a trine, and I think these energies are working together to really try to help you to advance yourself in one way or another, okay? Now, the other thing I want to touch on before I finish talking about the sextiles and trines is that eclipses, as I said, are 3 times more powerful than a regular new moon. So they don't just last during that 2-week or 1-month period before the energy runs out. They're setting something karmic in motion. So it's almost like it's a book that you can read, okay? And each of these houses is like a chapter, and you're turning each chapter. Every month, you're turning to a new chapter, a new chapter, a new chapter, until you get around all 12 of the houses and all 12 months. So for the whole year, you get that those chapters turning, okay, with each new moon and full moon. So something new begins and then something is completed. And they're all taking you toward this ultimate goal related to the eclipse, okay? And then that story can last 1.5 years because of the fact that the nodes are in a specific axis for 1.5 years. So what's happening now, and they always overlap when you get to the point where you have the final new moon or full moon eclipse with the nodes in a specific axis, and then they overlap when they're entering the next axis, okay? So this is the final new moon eclipse in Sagittarius. We are completing the eclipse season with this new moon eclipse. The next time we have an eclipse will be 6 months from now, and at that point, the nodes will be in a different axis, which will be Taurus and Scorpio. So this is the final one for this 1.5 year series, okay? But in a way, we've already begun the next, or this is the beginning of the next 1.5 year cycle, because this is a new moon, something's being born, but you are completing the old cycle, okay? These cycles also happen in 19-year cycles. So the fact that it's conjunct the South Node means that you are truly letting go of something from the past, okay? That could be a person, relationships, it could be a housing situation, it could be a job or a career or debt or maybe poor health. There's something that you are fully releasing now because this is the final eclipse in this axis with the South Node in Sagittarius, and the South Node is about the past. So it's a complete and total releasing of that old pattern, okay? And the beginning of something new, okay? So like I said, it overlaps a little bit, but you can be very sure if you're paying attention, you know exactly what that pattern was that you released. And again, you can look back on the past year and a half, what's been happening. You're done with that now. You're ready to begin something new. And this is very karmic, and it will take every month for the next year and a half to fully play itself out, okay? But you will definitely see some change in the next 6 months when we get to the next eclipse. That will happen in the new axis. You will really have a sense of this new thing being born in your life, okay? So if you also want to look at the 19-year cycle, just subtract 19 years from this, and that would take you to around the time of early December 2002, because that would be 19 years, okay? So just think about what was happening around that time in 2002, and you will see you're coming around to that same place again in the spiral of consciousness expansion. So it's not exactly the same, but you are coming around to that same theme, okay, or themes. Whatever was happening in your life 19 years ago, you're coming around to those same karmic themes again, but you're at a higher and more expanded level of consciousness. Okay, that's why I like to think of it as a spiral. You spiral back to the same themes, but now it's higher in a more expanded arc. So your consciousness is higher and more expanded. Now you come back to the same themes with that more evolved self, that more evolved consciousness, to again explore the same themes, whatever they may be for you. Okay? So to go on and look again at the trines and sextiles, we have Venus and Pluto moving into a conjunction. Now, what's interesting about this is that I love this new moon eclipse. Honestly, I think I just was so excited when I saw this new moon eclipse. I think it's fabulous. And at the same time, it's activating a 2-month initiation. So it's sort of like you're being born, and you could kind of think of it like the baby's crowning, but it's happening in slow motion, okay? You can just see the top of the skull. It's crowning. It'll take 2 months for it to completely give birth to this new beginning, this new self that you are. So it's like it's happening in slow motion. Why? Why is it taking 2 months to basically be born? That's because we're going to have a Venus retrograde over Pluto and then a Mercury retrograde over Pluto. So Venus will cross over Pluto 3 times when she's in her retrograde, and then Mercury will cross over Pluto 3 times in a retrograde. And so we need to deal with these Pluto issues. Pluto is in Capricorn right now, which is ruled by Saturn. So that takes us back to the Saturn issues. This is going to be incredibly empowering. If you are challenged during this 2 months, just take it with grace, okay? Take it like a warrior with the sword of Excalibur on your back, supporting you, strengthening you, and you will get through this. I'm actually not as concerned as I originally was, but maybe that's just for me personally. Other people might have a more challenging experience, but you will get through it if it does turn out to be challenging for you, and then you will give birth to this new person, and it'll be so wonderful. You will be grateful for the challenge that you went through to get to that more empowered self. You've been working on it. Every month I've been talking about power because every month Pluto has been activated in some way or another, and this is no exception. Now, one of the things I really like about this is that it's sextiling Mars in Scorpio, and both Pluto and Mars are co-rulers of Scorpio. Scorpio is all about power, okay? So if you're still dealing with power issues, especially with relationships, wealth, money, finances, because they also, with Venus and Pluto, they also rule wealth and money and finances, and potentially your career because it's in the 10th house. So something about your social status, and this could be challenged, or a challenge could come up, but you will get through it. And because we may see some destabilization of the markets, meaning the stock market, cryptocurrency, financial institutions, economy, supply chains, don't let that freak you out, okay? It's just this kind of dip, and I don't think it's going to last more than 2 months. Once we get to early February, so exactly 2 months, Mercury will go direct and Venus will already be direct, and then everything will start to smooth itself out and start to get much, much better. We're clearing out the weaknesses in the system. Okay, this is a reset for both you personally and for the economy. And we're going to touch on what's happening in the nation as well, because this new moon eclipse is exactly on the ascendant of the United States. So I'll do another video on that. So to have the sextile with Mars is also extremely favorable. That's going to give you the strength and motivation to work through whatever challenging situations come up, and you will be able to do that and end up with the benefits of working through those weaknesses, those problems, issues, power dynamics, whatever they are. We also have a sextile to Neptune. And when we get that favorable energy from Neptune, it helps people to be compassionate and understanding and loving, and to see things from a more spiritual perspective, and to be more creative in their solutions. It's almost like you can dissolve the problem and you can begin to regrow your sense of self and your life out of that fertile soil. The last one I'll mention is Uranus. Uranus is also trining these planets in water and earth at a very wide angle, but it's still a favorable angle. And it's also making a quincunx to the new moon eclipse. So there will be some breakthrough energy. And then the square to Saturn, the final square to Saturn, which happens on December 24th, will give you that final breakthrough energy. Okay, so this is actually an extremely favorable new moon eclipse. I'm super excited about it, and I think you will be too. All right, so I'm going to bring this to an end, and like I said, I still actually have a lot more to say about this, particularly regarding how it lands on the chart of the United States, and so I will be back to talk about that again soon. If you need a reading, just look at the link below. Like I said, I'm doing my specials now. It's 50% off, and you can buy as many as you want if you want to give them as gifts, or if you know you're going to need another reading during the year. But there is a limited number of appointments, and once I reach that number, then I will end these specials. So if you want one at a 50% discount, you got to get on it right away. Okay, so that's it. Again, if you want to come to the Patreon, there's always a link below, and you can join us face-to-face on our Zoom party this Friday, December 3rd. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again soon.